Hi, everybody. Good evening. Is there any place you'd rather be on a Thursday night than right here in the Milton High School auditorium? Me neither. Welcome to first grade information night. We're so happy you're here. We're going to get started right away because we've got a lot of information to share with you. And I have, Christy and Zena and I have been doing this for a lot of years. We could do this presentation in our sleep. And we know that the most important part is to get to your questions and answers. So we're going to try to answer as many as we can in the presentation, but please know these two mics are here. We want you to ask whatever it is that you need to ask in order to make the best possible decision that you can make for your child. And it is a big decision. It's an exciting decision. It's an amazing opportunity that your kids have that most kids in other districts, neighboring districts, don't have, right? So we're here to present information about both pathways, the English Innovation Pathway and the French Immersion Pathway. And I have to say, as the Glover principal, Karen McDavitt, by the way, I didn't even introduce myself. I have watched children grow and flourish for 10 years in both programs. Our teachers are outstanding. Our pedagogy is amazing. Our curriculum is incredible. Everything that happens in both classrooms, in both strands, is really top notch, and you can't go wrong. The other thing you're going to hear us say over and over again is you know your child better than anyone else. So you know at the end of the day, after you hear all this information, do a gut check. Think about your child. Think about what you've known about your child since they were 2 years old, since they were 4 years old, how they like to learn, what they like to learn, what their passions are, all of that, and you will make the right decision. I know it feels stressful right now. We're going to try to decrease the stress as much as possible. But on behalf of the 4 elementary principals, please know that if you don't ask any questions tonight or you have any additional questions after, you can always feel free to reach out to us or to Christy or to Zena. They'll introduce themselves as well. We're all here to help you through the process. The only thing we won't do is tell you what you should pick. Sorry. And your kindergarten teachers won't either. So some of you might have conferences next week with your kindergarten teachers, and it's really important for you to know that they might give you some thoughts about your child's learning style. They might give you some thoughts about their profile in the classroom, but they are not going to tell you choose French or choose English because it is entirely parent choice. And that is what's sort of unique and special about this. But it's also what makes it really challenging when I get to the part about lotteries and timelines and things like that, because there's really no way to predict what it's going to look like each year because it's entirely dependent on what you guys choose. So we have no way of knowing right now. It is like, honestly, like playing the lottery. So we're going to go over both programs. Then we're going to talk about assignment plan. Then we're going to talk about what happens if we need a lottery. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I've been here for enough years to know that it doesn't always happen, but it does sometimes. Usually we're able to make everything work out as best as possible. Not always. We'll go over the timeline and then we'll have that valuable time for Q&A. We have some amazing teachers here. In particular, I see a whole row of incredible French immersion teachers here. Shout out Thursday night. They're here too. So thank you for coming. And you know, if you want to hear it straight from them about anything related to French immersion, certainly that's why they're here to help. I also want to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is certainly that we're facing a situation that we've never, again, in my 10 years of presenting this, I've never had to stand here and say what I'm about to say, which is that we are in a world of some economic uncertainty in the Milton Public Schools. And if you've tuned into any school committee or select board meetings recently, you know that we are looking for an override in order to sustain services in the Milton Public Schools. If we weren't to be able to achieve that, there would certainly be impacts to both programs. So what I am here to say to you and to reassure is that what we would like to do is we'd like to present to you the best case scenario, the real life scenario, which is what it has been every single year in the Milton Public Schools for a very long time. We're going to tell you what it's going to look like hopefully, right? Understanding that we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what is going to happen because we are in a period of financial instability. That said, the district is very committed to maintaining equity between these programs. And so, cuts to one program versus another are going to be very carefully weighed and very thoughtfully weighed. And what I would encourage you to do is to think about what we're about to present independent of the uncertainty. And I know that that's very hard to do. And I know that at the end of the day, you have to make a choice that is best for you and your family and your child. But try to look at it as what it would look like if it was like every other year in the Milton Public Schools, knowing that our commitment as a district, and we are joined here by our assistant superintendent, Dr. Watts, and I know that central office, there's also uncertainty and instability there. But I know that, the principals, the leadership team, and central office are all committed to, if cuts are necessary, making sure that those cuts are not impacting, or are as little as possible impacting the fidelity of both programs. So if you have been tuning in, you've seen those graphics, you've seen what potential cuts might look like. Those are potential cuts. We won't know anything until we know numbers and we know what's happening. So we are committed to preserving the fidelity of the program both programs as much as we possibly humanly can. So both programs are aligned with DESE. We teach language arts and literacy, math, science, technology, engineering, social studies, history, world languages, the arts, and physical education in both programs. So everything that is mandated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is taught, whether you are in French immersion or English innovation. The difference is, in French immersion, you learn it in French. We do have some common curriculum. So our ELA curriculum, our literacy curriculum is different, but our math curriculum is actually the same. We use the curriculum into math in both French and English. And the difference, again, is that in French, it is translated and printed out for the kids. But other than that, it's the same exact content, the same exact curriculum, and same assessments, same everything. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Christy Chiapetta. She is our K-8 science coordinator, director, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the English Innovation Pathway, as well as then she's going to share with Zena, who's going to talk a little bit about Spanish.
Thank you. Hi, welcome. Again, I'm Christy Chiapetta. I'm the K-8 science coordinator here in the district. In my role, I support science for both the English Innovation and French Immersion pathways, and I also support STEM programming for the English Innovation program. So what I'll spend most of my time talking about is our STEM programming for the English Innovation pathway. We now implement Project Lead the Way as our curriculum in every classroom in grades 1 through 5. This is a recent upgrade. We spent the last few years with support from the Mass STEM Hub and the 1-8 Foundation upgrading our curriculum for the program, along with a lot of support from our ed tech teachers at the elementary level, Jen Van Hill and Sarah Doherty. So they've been pretty integral in this process for us. One of the drivers for this change was that post-COVID, we now had a new understanding of technology in our classroom with our students, and we wanted to shift to something that felt a little more hands-on and got kids back to building, and also allowed us to take advantage of some new programs and curriculum that was available at the time. So students are first introduced to Project Lead the Way in first grade, where I'm going to take this off the computer here, where they do two different modules. One is an engineering module, and the other is a computer science module. And all students from grades 1 through 5 have approximately 1 hour of STEM each week if you're in the English Innovation program. Both modules include hands-on activities and some computer-based work, What's unique about Project Lead the Way is that even when you're doing some of the more programming type activities, they often incorporate a hands-on component. So students are doing some kinesthetic modeling of coding, even all the way up to through third grade, where they're doing a little bit more advanced coding, but there's still this hands-on element to it. In second grade, students continue with the same curriculum, but now they're doing two different modules. One is a materials science module, which is an engineering-based module, and the other is a computer science module. For many of our engineering modules, it's engineering is embedded in a sort of a science scenario, so it's a combination of both science and engineering. It creates a context where students sort of take advantage of learning a little bit more about the careers and the different fields of engineering throughout the 5 years. In third grade, it's a similar pattern, two different modules, again, a computer science module and an engineering module. And one of the elements that we appreciate about this is that each year, while the curriculum changes, there's a similar format where students do some introductory activities that teach you the content. Then there's always a problem that students will work on that helps them, actually a project first, where they integrate the curriculum and the content and sort of learn how to apply it. And then at the end, there's a more open-ended problem that students will be solving and working together in groups to sort of create their own solutions. In fourth grade, we introduce an additional module. So this one has an engineering, a biomedical on the human brain, and a computer science module. The focus for the last two units is inputs and outputs. And so you see them both how it happens with a computer and with your body. Students, I was just observing this one recently, and students were sort of building these, as you can see here, there's a photo, but some clay modeling, and they sort of model how their brain works. One of the benefits of this curriculum is that it's on an online platform, so it allows the curriculum to be updated on a more regular basis. When we started the upgrade, one of the challenges we had was that STEM curriculum and technology-based programming often goes out of date really quickly. And so we found ourselves with outdated materials that were hard to upgrade. The software changes or different things. This one is pretty unique in that it's constantly being upgraded from year to year. So fourth grade was a great example because there was a module that we had been using that seemed a little bit out of date, and there was some new software and different materials available. And as part of the curriculum, you're able to just smoothly transition to a more updated version. And then in grade 5, we build in robotics, and that's the key element to the 5th grade curriculum. There's also an engineering one that focuses on mechanical engineering and the mechanical properties of different materials. But overall, I think the one that you'll be most likely to see in our elementary schools is the robotics, where kids are sort of moving robots all around the 5th grade. And when spring hits, it's a pretty exciting time for all of our students. One of the pieces that we enjoy in 5th grade is a good example, is the flexibility of this curriculum. Project Lead the Way has several different modules for each grade. And so as we start to decide one feels either a little stale, or there's a new option for us, it's pretty easy and cost effective to transition to something new. One of the changes that we made to 5th grade recently was the old module that we were using was infection detection. And when you learned about how viruses spread, and we found that post-COVID, that module seemed less exciting to kids because it was knowledge they already had. So that's where we recently replaced it through our grant with this unit on mechanical engineering. And it focuses on sort of space shuttle launch and the materials that are used in a space shuttle. And students learn a little bit more about material science with that. Overall, this year was the first year that we were implementing the curriculum from grades 1 through 5. I think we've seen that it's felt pretty successful in all of the classrooms. I'm excited that as kids now are moving up through the program each year, it's going to be a familiar curriculum for them and process. I think now that we're consistently using it, I think there's going to feel like a real presence for STEM in the English Innovation Pathway. And I like to see that we're going to have all these different projects going on at all the different levels now. I'm going to introduce, actually, that's the update on STEM. I'm going to introduce you to Zina Hamada, our World Languages Director, and she will talk to you about Spanish in the English Innovation Pathway.
Hi. So in the English Innovation Pathway, so I'm a director of World Language grades 1 to 12, because in grade 1, they go either in the English Innovation Pathway where they learn Spanish as a language, or the French Immersion Program where it's a tool that we use to teach the kids. So in the English Innovation Pathway, Spanish is a content-based instruction. So students will learn subjects, language arts, like reading a little bit, writing, listening, speaking. Sometimes there's some math in it, science, social studies. But basically in grades 1 and 2, they get one 30-minute lesson in Spanish a week. And in grades 3, 4, and 5, it increases a lot. They get 2 times 45 minutes a week. I have linked here a little video because sometimes parents want to see what it is like to have a language lesson in action. A lot of parents had asked if we can come and visit for both French immersion and Spanish, but it's really very disruptive for the classroom, for the teachers, for the school. And so many parents ask. So that's why we have linked some videos on the slides that you can watch what it looks like. But I can tell you that last year when we were at Glover, the Spanish teacher did have a friend classroom in Mexico, and the kids were videoing each other and speaking to each other. And it was really amazing to see that our students were able in 4th grade to communicate with students in Mexico who wanted only to learn Spanish, but our kids wanted to speak Spanish, wanted to learn in English, but our kids only spoke Spanish. So, because I like to show what it looks like beyond first grade, because we think our language learning is a commitment throughout the high school. How does it look like when they go to Pierce Middle School? So they have this half an hour in grade 1 and 2, and then they have 2 times 45 minutes in grades 3, 4, and 5. What does it look like when they go to Pierce Middle School? So in 6th grade, so at Pierce, there are 3 years, right? They're there for 6th, 7th, and 8th. But at Pierce, we have Spanish A, B, C, and D. And the reason why we have that is Spanish A is for students who have not taken language before and can enter at a, first level language class. But our students that graduate from 5th grade at the elementary go into Spanish B. And they continue C and D and graduate from Pierce Middle School having done 2 years of a high school Spanish. So when they come to the high school here, we put them, their entry level usually is recommended for Spanish 3, honors or CP, because we have the levels at the high school. Sometimes the teacher feels strongly that they need maybe a little bit more before they get to Spanish 3, so they're recommended to Spanish 2, mostly honors. And this is what we're doing right now at the high school, recommending students from Pierce Middle School 8th grade into Spanish, French, and Latin. We have Latin also. So, and just to tell you that when you are in the English Innovation Pathway and you get to 5th grade and you feel that my student really needs a different language and there is no entry into French immersion because it's an immersion program and they're way advanced, we start offering Latin in 6th grade, and students who are in the English Innovation Pathway can start Latin at a basic level. We have 3 years of Latin at the Pierce Middle School, and those students come to the high school and go into Latin too. So they've done 1 year of Latin covered at Pierce Middle School. All right. So now I'm going to start with the French Immersion Program. And the French Immersion Program, the difference between the Spanish in the English Innovation Program and this French Immersion Program is that one is a teaching in the a language, but in the program, in the French Immersion Program, you are teaching using the language as the tool of instruction. So all the subjects are taught in French, except for art, music, phys ed, educational technology. Those are taught by specialists in English who come into the classroom. You might say, what about library? Our wonderful librarian here in Milton Public Schools is bilingual, so he does speak French and reads in French to the kids. So in grades 1 and 2, they are fully immersed in French, 100%, except for those subjects. But in grades 3 and 4, 50% becomes in French and 50% is in English. Because of MCAS, they have to learn English as a language, of course, and their math is in English. They have taken math in French in grades 1 and 2. In grade 3, it becomes in English. And again, it's the same math curriculum. In grade 5, the science MCAS happens. And so students start taking 30% of their day in French and 70% of their day in English. So they take French language arts and social studies in French, and that's 30% of their day. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. And then the rest is in English. So what is French immersion? It's an instructional model where the general school curriculum is taught through the medium of a target language, which is French, and it continues throughout the high school. So it is a commitment for students to be in the French immersion and go through 5th grade in the French immersion. The program will continue with advanced instruction into middle school and high school. And entry into grade 1, we get a lot of emails during the year. Can my son get in? Can my daughter get in? It's hard if you don't speak. The kids have already spoken and they learn math and science and all of that. But we do offer placement tests for students who have come in, and we determine if they are able to continue in the program or not, or enter the program, and also if seats are available. So formal English instruction starts in 3rd grade. Here we have teachers, and I love that they come to answer questions like, how do they start reading in English? There's a lot of transfer that happens from French to English in phonics, in reading. It's amazing. I mean, you have to see it, watch it to believe it. And students will typically learn to read fluently in English with formal and targeted English instruction. We have reading specialists in 1st and 2nd grade who take small groups, and it's a tier 2 intervention for students who need it. And the linguistic skills do transfer from French to English. So if you enter 1st grade, I don't want to read through the slides. You can read them when you get them. But when you enter the experience, if you enter into French immersion classroom in 1st grade, you're going to see a lot of the first few months, the teacher is putting out a lot. It's a lot of output, on the end of the teacher. Go back in December, you'll see that students are starting to speak. And I was just telling the teachers now, I went to Tucker today, whose principal is sitting right there, into French immersion 1st grade, and they were speaking to me like full sentences, paragraphs, having a conversation with me in French. So it develops really fast. At first, they're listening, taking it in, and wondering, what are you saying? And then they start outputting. It's amazing. So they will start participating. But of course, during emergencies like a fire drill, a lockdown, the teacher is not going to speak to them in French. It's going to go right to English to get things done and for them to be safe. So you will see that change starting in October, November, the transition to speaking in French only. So you, as parents, if you're not Francophone, if you don't speak French or understand French, sometimes you'll say, how can I help them? Teachers are always available to help. They will send homework that has been prepared for in the classroom. Math goes home in English so that parents can help if need be, but everything else is in French, and the students know what to do. Sometimes when students struggle, email goes from parent to teacher. Teacher says, don't worry, they'll come to class, they'll figure it out. They'll have support. They have support all the time, and it's something that they know how to do. So at first, a long time ago when I first started in Milton, we used to say, no, don't read to your child in any language. No, you can read to your children in whatever language you want. It's fine. Students at this age are sponges. And I remember the pediatrician of my son telling me at this age, they can learn 7 languages. So we should not worry that if we read to them in different languages, they'll not be able to speak French. No, they will be. And they're encouraged to read stories in any language at home. Have your student read to you in French and explain to you what they're reading. That's also very interesting. We've attached here a sample communication letter from one of the teachers to the families and resources that sometimes go home to use. We have them on a platform that we'll explain about in a little bit right here. Lalilo is a French platform. Our students use it grades 1 through 5. It's a French platform, French from France, and they are able to use it. We have some students in 3rd grade who are able to finish all the levels. It takes you into different worlds and you have to achieve medals and banners, and the teachers can explain it better than me, but they love it and they enjoy it and they're able to navigate it. It's reading, comprehension, listening, all of it. It has stories and it engages the students in so many fun ways. A teacher can assign things on this platform. This platform, you will have the logins at home for students to use, and the teacher can track what the students are doing on this platform. Now, assessments. And Danielle, our SPED director, will later explain it. I don't know. But of course, there was this year a guidance from DESI that students have to have early screening. And we started looking for a screener that mirrored the DIBELS, which is what the English Innovation Pathway students use. So our students in 1st and 2nd grade will take the DIBELS twice a year, which is mandated by the state. But we also offer our own screener, which is now in, it was released finally this year to be almost to the point of approval. We're working on that with our assistant superintendent, hopefully by DESI in the coming years, to be approved as a screener for French. So, and it's called Acadiens Reading Français. And if you look at it and look at the DIBELS, they're exactly the same subtests. Marianne, am I correct? Yes. Okay. And Marianne is our reading specialist right here. So in grades 1 to 5, French immersion students are assessed for reading and reading comprehension as well with something we call GB+, and they do it every year, 3 times a year, and it's kind of a progress monitoring for us. And we use it to inform our teaching and the learning of our students. Again, here, just to avoid having families say, I need to see what a science lesson looks like. I need to see what a math lesson looks like in French immersion. And we cannot accommodate people coming to schools all the time and disrupting the learning of our students. So we asked teachers to volunteer and record some, sessions, and we put them here. And a lot of them volunteered, as you can tell. So we have 3 pages of links that you can look at. So finally, what happens after 5th grade? When they come to the Pierce Middle School, students that graduate from 5th grade French immersion come into 6th grade French immersion. And they take 2 classes. One is a French immersion language arts, and the other is a French immersion humanities that's more about culture. And they're both in French. And we have 5 French immersion teachers at Pierce Middle School. Now, what happens in grade 8? In grade 8, teachers will recommend students to French immersion 4 at the high school here. They will either recommend them to the honors or CP. So it depends on the level and how they can manage the program, etc. And here they continue French immersion. Okay, and they could choose to change a language at the high school. They can choose to go into Latin. And actually, a couple of times I went into a Spanish classroom and I saw French immersion students and I said, did you leave French immersion? It's like, no, I'm taking Spanish as an elective. So they're putting Spanish as an elective for them. So what we do here, we also offer at the high school something called Français 7, which is a classroom that trains our students to take the DELF exam. The DELF is the Diplôme d'éducation de langue française, and it's a diploma that our students will take for life. They take it one time, and this diploma will allow them to work and go into university, but mainly to work in any Francophone country. So we are now in the process of registering our students to take the DELF exam at the International School of Boston, which is a center for the exam. And 45 have registered. We have 30 on the waiting list because the ISB could not take all our students. So These certificates are valid for life, like I said. In the last 2 years, we've partnered with the French consulate. I don't know if you've read that the French ambassador from DC came to visit Milton High School. Our students met him. And we are partnered with some universities in France. Namely, I'm sure you'll recognize them, Sciences Po Paris, Université Paris-Saclay, Sorbonne, Université Paris Sciences et Lettres. And our students are learning about the pathway to go to those universities if they choose to. And I'm only giving you all this because it's important to understand that this is a commitment, and you don't have to commit to go to university in France, no, but that they will be ready to do that if you choose or they choose to go. Like, we arm them with everything they need. And this is it for us. So we have a lot of our teachers here for later if you have questions, like how it happens in the classroom. And all of this will be available for you to have. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I'm Danielle Wetmore. I'm the Director of Student Services here in Milton. So I just wanted to give a couple of slides on special education in the district, whether you're French immersion or the English innovation pathway. So as with all students, special education services are based on the needs of each student, regardless of the participation in either program. They all have the same rights to special education screening and evaluations, regardless of which strand they attend. I've been working with Kat DeRoche on using the DIBELS as an indicator for dyslexia. And this year, we're also introducing into our case screening, but also discussing using the Shaywitz dyslexia tool for our kindergartners this year to be able to do some early detection in dyslexia to really help sort of some of that decision-making around which pathway to choose if students are flagged for a potential dyslexia disability. But all of our students have access to those tools. We generally send information home to parents if students are flagged in any area during kindergarten screening, and we'll look at them through the DIBELS lens again in their kindergarten year, so you'll get updates for your students. All of our students who qualify for special education services must be found eligible through the TEAM process. So our child find process, really any indicator, either from parents, teachers, anyone really legally can initiate the child find process through if your child or someone else suspects your child of a disability. And if your student is found eligible, the team creates an individualized education program. And again, this is regardless of which pathway you choose. This is available and accessible to all students as eligible. In the district, we have a continuum of services. So if a student is found eligible for special education, there are a number of different services that are provided for students with disabilities, from consultation provided to classroom teachers with ongoing support from special educators, related service providers, to really ensure that students are getting the supports they need in the least restrictive environment. Our students who are not found eligible for special education, who have maybe gaps in their learning, that child find process can be initiated through our student support team process. So you may get information home from your principal or from a teacher that your student may be being looked at through the lens of our SST. Additionally, students with special ed can have direct services provided with special educators and or related service providers, either in the classroom or in a pull-out session individually or in a small group that address the goals that are written in the IEP during the team process. And then finally, we have a number of programs across the district that we're continuing to modify and adjust to meet our students' needs. A special education team may recommend a specialized program if your student needs more intensive services. Again, depending on our specialized programming, depending on how substantially separate it is, the option is available for both pathways. So that's quick and easy. Thank you.
All right, so now we get down to it. Now we get to the good stuff. First, just in case anybody was curious and looking for extra fun reading anytime, there is a school committee policy on all of this that I'm about to tell you about lotteries and program assignments. If you want to read it, it is linked here. But what I want to do is kind of get into, all right, now what do we do? And you don't have to take your phones out and take pictures of all these slides. We are going to send them your principal tomorrow morning. We'll send you an email. It'll say, thank you for attending. If you couldn't attend, here are the slides. And it will also have the selection form in it. And I'll go over that right now. So kindergarten families choose, obviously, one of two programs. You're going to either choose English Innovation or you're going to choose French Immersion. Remembering that English Innovation includes that Spanish instruction and STEM enrichment that Zena and Christy talked about. So tomorrow, you're going to get an email, again, from your child's principal, and it's going to say, thank you for coming. Here are the slides. And then this form is going to be linked. It's a Google form. It's really important that you fill it out. And it's really important that you fill it out by March 21st, which is a week from tomorrow. It's next Friday. So we've given you a week and a day to make this decision, which I know doesn't feel like a very long time. But again, you know your child best. You follow your gut. You know your child best. You are your child's first and primary teacher. If you don't fill out this form, one of our principals is going to be knocking on your door and calling you and telling you we need your selection because we need to know. So it is really important that you fill it out, but don't feel pressure to fill it out until you're ready. It's not a first come, first serve. So if you fill it out tonight on your way or tomorrow morning, as soon as you get it, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to see any more than someone who waits until the 11th hour to fill it out. So zero rush on that, but you will see that Google form, and that is ultimately how you will communicate what you choose for your child. All right. So if you choose English, you get English. If you want English Innovation, you get English Innovation. We're never going to tell you you can't have instruction in your child's native language. You also get English in your homeschool. So if you're choosing English Innovation, your kiddo is staying right where they are, and they're going to move on and matriculate into a first grade classroom with an amazing English first grade teacher, and they will remain in their home school. They'll get weekly STEM and Spanish instruction. Our English Innovation classes, especially at the primary grades, are typically a little bit smaller. Not always. There's always anomalies. Like I said, it is entirely dependent on what you guys choose. So some years look different than others. And every elementary school will have a minimum of 2 English Innovation Pathway classrooms. That's really important for everyone to know. We always will be committed to having at least 2. We may have more than 2, but there will always be 2. The same is not said for French in all schools. So it's important to know that there will always be 2 English Innovation classes. So English, you're at your home school, you move on to first grade, you move around the corner down the hall to Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, and you're good to go in your home school. If you choose French and all the stars align and everything works out, your child will move around the corner to first grade to Madame so-and-so or Monsieur so-and-so in their home school. But that isn't always the case. And that's kind of what we're here to talk through a little bit and help you understand a little bit better. So in the event that the demand for French immersion seats exceeds the number of available seats in your home school, then we have to do what's called a lottery. So if your school is a single strand French school, for example, there's only 1 French class per grade. The maximum we go up to in French classes is 26. Occasionally, very occasionally, if there's a twin in there, we've had to go to 27, but we're 26. So say 30 kids in your school choose French immersion, and we have 26 seats. All 30 kids are going to be randomly assigned a lottery number. All 30 go into the lottery for that school. We assign 26 of them, and then 4 of them are waitlisted. They're waitlisted at the home school, and then they're offered, if there are seats in another school, they're offered the opportunity to do French immersion, but not in their home school. And I'll talk about that in a second. If we need to do any of that work, and that work happens in each school. So I'm at Glover, I might have a lottery. Celeste is at Tucker, she might not have a lottery. It, again, is entirely dependent on exactly what you choose. So we have no way of knowing right now whether there'll be a lottery or not. If we need one, it'll be the following week. So you guys put in the forms next Friday. That following week, we do all the number crunching. We toss all the things into one big pot and we figure out where we fall. Really important to know. I haven't seen this as much recently, but there was a time where like the operating theory was choose French because you don't want to lose the potential of getting French, but you can always change your mind and go back to English because McDavitt said you can have an English seat in your home school. That's not the case. If you choose French immersion on that form next Friday, you relinquish your English seat in your home school. If later you choose, you know what, I chose French and I think I really needed to choose English. If there's an English seat in your home school, of course, we're going to put your child right in that classroom. But if there's not, because we've filled it up, because we've had some move-ins, because we've got some really big classes, because Milton's really awesome and everybody wants to learn here, then we may say to you, I'm sorry, but you relinquished your English seat in your home school. We have a seat. It's in a different school. So that's just a cautionary tale. That was a move parents made for a while until they realized it wasn't a good one. Don't pick French unless you want French. Don't choose it as a placeholder. Does that make sense? So how does the lottery work? Like I said, so say there's a single strand and 30 kids pick. I've got 26 seats. They all get a number. They all go into the lottery. The first 26 are assigned. The other 4 are waitlisted. Then we will communicate with you. Someone usually from central office will communicate with you and say, hey, you're on the wait list at Tucker, but Glover has a seat. Would you like that seat? Do you want French immersion enough for your kiddo that you are saying, you know what? Yep, we're going to switch schools and we're going to go to Glover because Glover has a seat. Tucker is full. That then becomes a district-wide lottery because there's a potential, based on what you guys choose, that Cunningham might also have a lottery and Cunningham might also need those Glover seats, right? So if I have seats and Celeste needs some seats and John needs some seats, the reality is then it becomes a district-wide lottery, which is a whole different process. Then they're given a whole new set of numbers, and then it goes by that. You're first on the district lottery, you get the first open seat at the first open school. That's a choice that then you make as a family, and you decide what you would like to do. Twins and triplets are treated as one entry. So if anybody is the proud parent of a twin or a triplet, don't worry, we would never split you up. That's why I said every once in a while we do end up at 27 in some of our French classes because we have twins. So what if you choose to change schools? You were on that short list of 4. Glover had a seat that opened up. You were like, oh, I really love Tucker, but okay, I'll think about it. You still stay on the wait list at your home school. So things do happen. Families do say, I think I made the wrong choice. I need to pull out of French. We really, 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 really encourage you not to do that because you're absolutely kind of messing with everybody else's plan and program. But things do change every once in a while. So if something did open up in your homeschool, maybe somebody moves out of Milton. We would reach out to you based on the wait list, based on where you're assigned, and we'd say, hey, good news. A seat actually did open up at Tucker in the French immersion program. Would you like that? So even if you opt to say go to another school, if something opens up, you can go back. We will transport your child for free on the big yellow bus. It's lots of fun because we are offering you that program in a different school. And like I said, again, if it opens up in the lottery order, you'll be able to return. So you guys are here, most of you probably because you have kiddos with us right now, right? Your kids are in kindergarten in the Milton Public Schools. If they're not, if you're here because your child attends a Montessori school, but you love the idea of French immersion, so you're going to register now and have your child come here in first grade, it's important to know that priority goes to our currently registered kindergartners. So our kids who are here at Glover, Tucker, Cunningham, and Collycott are the ones that get first dibs on program selection. Kids who register after March 1st may have the option, again, depending on room. If I've got seats in my French immersion classroom and you register and you're assigned to my school, you have the option. But if I don't have seats, you may not have an option if you're not currently registered. And again, we do that same thing at the end at the end of the year as well. So tomorrow morning, you'll get the email. If you already know, fill out the form, no sweat, get it done, put it in, you're done. Check. Woo. If you're not sure, again, ask questions tonight, ask questions of us, all of us principals, anybody who's up here. But you have to fill out that form by next Friday. And we're asking by 3:30 so that we can start in, and trust me, all 4 principals sit there and, check that form like, I don't know, like it's really exciting for us. We don't get out much. and then the following week we'll have our lotteries if we need them. And then the week after that, we will let you know, a week or 2 after that, we will let you know your program assignment and we'll let you know what your options are. Like I said, if there's still seats and kids come in before June 30th, we'll do another lottery. If there's still seats, we'll do another one in August. And then in August, that's when you'll hear from your child's principal, of who your child's teacher is. So you're going to hear in the beginning of April what your program is, but you're going to hear in August who your teacher is, because that work takes a lot of time. And there is no entry into the French immersion program after the 10th day of school, because like Zena said, by day 10, they're already doing it. It's kind of magical. So after day 10, it's really hard for somebody to transfer in. So that's just a little bit of a caution. And then the last thing that we just want to kind of leave you with and remind you, what's important to you and your family. You know your child better than everyone. And the reality is, either way, like I said in the beginning, it's kind of a no-win situation. I mean, it's a win-win situation. It's really tired. I'm really tired. It's a win-win situation. Your child will acquire a second language by the end of high school. And to be honest with you, I really, truly, watching my 5th grade English innovation kids literally coding robots, and I'm walking down the hallway and they're like, "Watch out, Mrs. McDevitt!" And like there's robots driving into my feet. That happens. Watching 1st graders, I walk into the classroom, "Bonjour, Madame McDevitt, comment ça va?" Like, "Ça va bien," it happens. It's magic. Whichever program you choose, whatever you choose, you're going to get an incredible teacher. You're going to get an amazing set of curriculum and resources. You're going to have a wonderful experience. So I know it feels stressful. It feels like a lot right now. Hopefully we can answer your questions and make it feel less. But you know your kid best. So go with your gut, go with what you know. And now it's your turn. So tell us what you want to know and be brave. But if you don't want to say anything in front of everybody, you don't have to. Again, you can email any one of us and we'll kind of just tag team and answer questions as they come up. Go ahead. Yeah. So obviously we also have a space constraint here in the Milton Public Schools. So if we could invite classrooms, that'd be really awesome. But Tucker can't fit another classroom, so they're going to be able to do 1 strand, right? I might be able to fit 2, but I certainly can't add 3. So yes, at some point we do tap out and we say this is it. Most, some of the Glover and Polycott have double strands in some ways. Cunningham and Tucker are single strands, and that's simply because there aren't enough classrooms to fit one. Go ahead. So, actually, I just want to clarify that. That's a great question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So the question was why there's no STEM, right? In the French immersion because of language acquisition. There is STEM in that, and I'll answer that actually. We cover standards that are required by the state in science. It includes everything in both English and French, but the STEM component was a little extra, an hour a week for the English innovation pathways, and the Spanish was added, those 2. But I will let you.
Sure. There are some engineering elements that are part of our state standards for science. Those are covered in both the French and English pathway. They have the same curriculum for science. STEM is an element that is only available to the English Innovation. And the reason for that is that's one of the specialty elements of that particular program. The French program, students learn French. The English Innovation side, there's STEM and significantly less, but still also Spanish as the language.
Hi. I wanted to ask if there are any trends you can speak to in assessment data in the English program versus the French program.
I can take it. Is this on? I don't know. I can take a stab at that. So we've definitely done a lot of trend analysis over the years. We actually years ago had a Harvard educator do a full study, which again, if you want to geek out on it, a full study of sort of the trends of French immersion versus English in terms of achievement, in terms of, we often get questions about demographics. We get questions about gender. We get questions about all those things in French versus English. Dr. Laura O'Dwyer years ago, and she did find that there was no significant difference in achievement, French versus English. I can speak to it personally and anecdotally. I sort my MCAS data. I'm sure Celeste can too. I sort my MCAS data in 1,000 different ways. Children achieve in both programs. We don't see any sort of marked differences. That said, each class is different. It's apples and it's oranges, and what we get each year is totally different. The level of need in each class, individual student strengths and differences. So it's really hard to say, but overall, our children achieve at very high levels in both programs. I think there's one back here.
Is there any consideration for siblings going through the process in different years and keeping them in the same school?
Really good question. So I always tell the story of a set of twins that I have, and one was like so classic French and the other was so classic English. And the mother, I remember in kindergarten, sat right where you were, and she was like, okay, this one's going English, that one's going French. Is that okay? We really encourage you to take each child as their own individual. Our kids are very different. I have two of my own. My kids could not be more different, right? Like they're total polar opposites. So we really encourage you to take each child as their own individual, whether the older brother or the older sister did French or didn't do French. May weigh into it in terms of your family choice. Again, remember, this is a family choice. However, if your older sibling is in 4th grade French and then the little one's going into 1st grade and you get waitlisted, just because your older one is at a school doesn't mean your younger one gets that school. So hopefully, fingers crossed, stars align, we keep families together, because the last thing we want to do is split a family up. But I can tell you that we have done that, and families have chosen to do that. They place value on French immersion, and they want their child in the program, and it just shakes out that the wait list means that they're at another school. Again, we would transport, big yellow bus comes right to your house, but no, sibling preference doesn't play in.
Just thinking about the school bus, if you are transporting to another school, like our Collicott bus comes right like to our house, how does that work with if they need to go to Glover? Like, where would we get on the bus?
As close as possible to your house. We do the routes all summer long, and so we would route as close as possible to your house as we could. Yeah. I'm just going to grab somebody else. Is that okay? Okay.
If your child's homeschool gets changed because of the lottery, would that change what your homeschool is for children who would be entering kindergarten later, but at the same time of being in elementary school?
Such a good question. So say I left Tucker, came to Glover because Glover had a seat for my oldest. Then my younger two are coming up. Your homeschool is where your current child is. So again, we don't want to separate families if we don't have to. So if I have your oldest, I would love to have your other ones too. Certainly, if there was a consideration, there are always extenuating circumstances, but for the most part, once you're in a school, we like to keep you in, families together in a school as much as possible.
So my son's gonna need ESL. In the English pathway, does that time he's taking off English class or Spanish class?
So if your child is an English language learner and they're in the English innovation pathway, they would not be missing Spanish in order to do their English language learning. They'd be doing that in a different portion of their day. So they're just in class all day. So they might be missing a little bit of literacy, or they might be missing a little bit of science, or they might be missing the tail end of social studies. Our EL teachers try really hard to schedule it so that maybe it's during snack, or maybe it's during a morning meeting or something like that, where they're not missing any core content, or they're preserving as much core content as they can. Yeah, yes.
I have a language question for once they get into middle school. Do you have to choose between Spanish and Latin, or can they take both?
In middle school, they can't do both. No, because it does not fit in their schedule. I haven't seen it done. At the high school, they can. So when you come up here and you're in Spanish 2, you can take another language as an elective if it fits in your schedule. It's very hard at the Pierce because Pierce Middle School functions in a different way. I don't know, some of you might have kids at Pierce, but they are on teams. So they go to math and science and on their team, and you can help me answer that question. But I have not seen students registered for 2 languages at Pierce. It did not work for their schedule. Can you answer better than that? That's the answer. Yeah, you have to schedule them for everything else. And French immersion students definitely can't because they have 2 classes. Yeah. I can take it.
Sorry. What does the homework workload look like for a first grader in French immersion versus the English innovation?
I'm going to give it to a French first grade teacher right here. We have 2 of them.
I don't know who asked the question, but we do have homework and like the English pathway also. The most important is that children to practice their reading. It's exactly the same as the other. We are actually using a platform called CISO, and everything is recorded and the children can practice and able to record their voice. It doesn't need to be perfect at the beginning, but they start to have like the routine, and after a while we see a lot of progress. So that's what we do. They have math, but we use the platform iReady, which is the same in English also. And pretty much that's it in terms of homework. We do have special projects, but those are family projects, and it's about the French-speaking country. It could be about Thanksgiving, things that it just go from time to time during the year. Does this answer your question? Whoever, Emma, did you want to? Yeah, the rule of Milton is really reading and yeah.
And we tell them if it's starting to stretch beyond that, to stop, and the next day the teacher will take care of it. Yeah.
So my question is, obviously we know Milton has a really big override coming up. Also currently, not to get political, but there's been several cuts to the Department of Education, and there may be continuing going forward. Are there any components of both of these tracks, be it the online programs, that we could lose as part of those cuts that would impact learning?
Yeah, so the reality is yes. If an override doesn't pass in the town of Milton, we're going to see catastrophic cuts to both programs. And the reality is we're going to feel pain everywhere. We're going to feel it in every classroom, regardless of pathway or program. We're going to feel it in the cafeteria and out on the playground. We're going to feel it everywhere. If we're losing inclusion specialists, we're going to have, difficulty providing tiered interventions. If we're losing BCBAs, we're going to have difficulty supporting students with special needs. Where if we, so the reality is, yes, that's the truth. That's the elephant in the room. If an override does not pass in the town of Milton, we're going to see catastrophic cuts, and those catastrophic cuts will be in both programs. Our commitment is to preserve the fidelity of both programs as much as possible and to commit to equity in both programs. So when we threw out, the list of what possibly could be cut, those are potentials. Those are nothing is set in stone in that yet. If and when we got to a position where, and I hope we don't, but if we got to a position where we had to make cuts, our priority, our commitment to you guys is to make those cuts equitably and with the interest of preserving the programs with as much fidelity as we possibly can. It's a hard question to answer right now. Sorry.
Hi. So we have a daughter who's currently in kindergarten at Adams Montessori, and we would love for her to be in French, very classic, as you said, French kid. I know that there's, we've sort of missed the boat on the first round of the possible lottery. But in that March 1st to June 30th timeframe, what does that sort of process look like?
I would register as soon as possible. It doesn't mean that you have to pull her out of school and put her in here, but I would register as soon as possible and explain your interest in French immersion upon registration so that we can account for her as soon as possible.
I guess the second part of my question, I forgot. Why is preference, like we've been residents of the town for 6 years, why is preference for current MPS kindergartners?
So that's one of those questions that I don't know an answer to. And that's why I linked that school committee policy, because I do know that it is school committee policy. So I don't know why they came up with that. I think that policy was inked a long time ago. I was not a part of it. But I would definitely recommend going ahead and taking a peek at that school committee policy. It's linked in the slides. Okay.
I'm curious about what happens if you pick French and it's not a good fit for your child. Either you decide or the teacher decides or maybe everyone decides. What does that process look like?
That's $1 million question. It happens. It does happen.
Our teachers in French immersion are certified by the Department of, they're certified teachers, just like our innovation pathway teachers are certified teachers. They're certified, we have tiered intervention. And then what our student services director explained. So every child has civil rights to intervention, to test, to everything, right? And we go by the process. And there isn't something that I would say is not a good fit, unless, like, I wouldn't know what not a good fit means. Like, you don't like it, or is it too hard, or he can't really progress. Then we take every individual case, as an individual case. There isn't an umbrella under which we put it's not a good fit, right? So I'm not trying to minimize what the question is, but it has to be a very particular problem or a particular issue, and we will deal with it. If we need to focus on the reading and the reading comprehension and making a student feel successful in the classroom, believe me, every teacher, whether in this program or that program, will do everything they can to make this child successful. And that's a commitment on everybody's part.
Thanks. I have another override question, but a different, it's an if it passes question. I believe a part of the override says that the ELA program will be updated. And I'm wondering exactly what we discussed just now would be changing.
So you've done your homework. You've been watching presentations. A+.
It's a lot going on.
Thank you. Thank you for your advocacy and support, really. Yes, we are up for a curriculum review and a new ELA curriculum in our English Innovation Pathway program. Our French immersion program uses a different literacy curriculum, and so that would be for our kids in the English Innovation Pathway. Oh, and all kindergarten. Yep.
Also, the English ELA curriculum, it will be a multi-year process. So it wouldn't expect that next year they'll be doing a study group of determining which curriculum they'll purchase and really rolling it out the following year. So not necessarily to start next year.
I'd imagine that it would be an emotional process for the first graders the first couple of days that they're in a classroom without knowing any of the language. Is that accurate? And if it is, what's the typical turnaround where they maybe aren't experiencing like more emotional dysregulation than we're used to seeing our little
Morgan,
kiddos?
do you really have a kindergartner coming to first grade? Oh, Morgan used to work for us in the Milton Public Schools, so you know. Certainly, I would defer to the teachers, but yeah, there's some tears those first couple days. I stand in the doorway, and they're like, "I don't want to go back in there. That lady's not speaking anything I know." And I pull them off of your leg, and by day 3, they're like, "Bonjour, comment ça va?" So it is like so. I don't know if you guys anyone who wants to speak to it, but it is super quick.
It is quick, yeah.
Honestly, you know, in a rare case, like I said, every individual is who they are. 100% true story. I had a kid who was like, "I'm out," and ran away from school on the 3rd day of school. True story, because he was like, "I don't know she's speaking French and I don't know what's happening." So yeah, there's like a little bit of a momentary, where am I? They're very quiet.
Yeah.
They're a little bit shell shocked. There might be some tears. They might come home and say, "What did you do to me?" Sit tight, and they do. Kids are the most malleable people and human. Like, they're incredible.
In December, parents are going to be the ones saying, "These are not my kids. They speak a language I don't speak, and I don't know what they're saying." And then if they have a sibling, they talk to each other, and you will understand absolutely nothing. Yeah, that happens.
I just want to add that the children are super resilient, and sometimes I feel that it's more the parents who are scared than the children. I'm not saying that it's all flowers and purple, and it takes some time to be comfortable with the French, but they are, like you said, they are amazing. Yeah, they do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks. I am so jealous of everybody who's like, I have a classic French kid or a classic science kid. And I just was wondering if anyone could tell us what that looks like. Because I'm not sure what our son is.
So again, I think Zena's right. Like there really isn't a classic anything. We get that question every year, right? We always get the question of like, well, my child is this kind of learner, which program works better for them? And the reality is that, you know, at the end of the day, what I would suggest, if you're not sure, watch some of those videos. You know what an English class looks like, right? We all probably participated in English elementary school, most of us, maybe. Watch what some of those videos look like. Watch what the class looks like. Watch what instruction looks like. See where you can see your child fitting. Think about their interests. Think about what Christy talked to you about with engineering and robotics and mechanics. And then think about what Zena talked to you about with Spanish. And then think about what Zena talked to you about with what it feels like to learn all day, every day in a language that is different than your native language or that the language that you speak at home. And then try to picture your kid. That's my best advice. Like, try to picture your kid in that room and say, yeah, you know, they would thrive. And the reality is they will in either classroom. Like, I can tell you that they do so beautifully in both classrooms. There isn't a fit. There isn't a template. There isn't a type. Some people say, well, you know, I have a little boy and he's really active and he's like super energetic and he, you know, needs to move and groove a lot. And so I'm assuming English. I'm like, no, don't assume that. Kids can be energetic and move and groove all day long. Isma's got about 14 of them in her class right I know. So just try to think of it as, what did you hear about what we offer in both, and where do you see your kid best? It's hard, but don't worry, because at the end of the day, it's going to be okay either way because of our teachers.
Can I just tell you one little thing that is really impressive? So right now, April 18, the high school world language department is taking 42 high schoolers to Spain and France. All the students in Spanish and not all, well, a lot of them, and French are going together. We're going to Barcelona, we're going to Nîmes, and then we're taking them to Paris. And today we instructed them that the French-speaking students will teach the Spanish-speaking students of like emergency words in French and vice versa. And I want to also tell you that our Latin students have a wonderful Latin club at the high school. Today they threw a baby shower for their teacher, and next month they're going to Holy Cross's Classics Day. So what I want to say in this is that every student finds success in the language they choose, and they will all be proud of the language they speak. And this is what we here do. Our world language department is not, I am teeny. All of these teachers here finish with the students, and they're all successful. And they place colleges, I speak from experience, don't know what to do with our students when they come to them. They place them in graduate classes at universities. Believe me when I tell you. And you can email me and I can answer all these questions. But seriously, we had students not be able to place in undergraduate languages in college because they were too advanced. So you won't make a mistake. Just look at your student and see what they would appreciate and love, and what you would be comfortable with. And either way, they'll be happy. That's all.
I had a question. If you have twins and your homeschool only has one class, and in a perfect world, there's no lottery, and you would prefer them to be in separate classes, do you accommodate to allow them to switch schools, that they can be in separate classes? Okay.
It is a parent right. It's really fun. This is a parent right of a parent with multiples, that if you choose to have your children separate, you can separate your children. If that's impossible because your child is in a single strand school, then we would offer you the opportunity to move to a school where there are two strands so that you could separate. That is like a really nuanced thing that like we've only run into a little, like maybe one time in my years, but we would tackle it when we got to it, when we find a plan that works.
Maybe tangential to that, if given the complexities of putting the kids in, a school, a pathway, a classroom, is it safe to assume that that will be their home classroom until they choose to leave? For example, if the family moves within Milton to another school's area, would they still stay in the original classroom that they were placed in if they chose?
Yeah. So if you move within Milton, you move from the east side to the west side, you would have the choice to stay. Your seat stays in that school. That is considered your home school. However, if we had a seat over here and you wanted to, because proximity wise it was closer, if we had room, we could certainly accommodate that. If we didn't have room, we wouldn't be able to.
Following on that, would the district then support busing even following the move to the original school?
That I don't know. I think we'd have to play with that and see. I would assume so. I think if you're not in your home school and you're going somewhere else for a program, I believe that we're required to provide transportation, but that would be something that we would sort of toss around with our assistant superintendent of business. Yeah.
My question is a bit of a follow-up to her question. So if your child gets into French and it's just not working out for whatever reason, but it's not going well, is there a time frame where you would switch over to English, or do you allow that? Because I know you said 10 days, no one can get into French after that first 10 days. Is there, or does it just not happen that much?
It just really, it genuinely, it doesn't happen that much. There isn't a timeline. It is a full on, it is a case by case basis. I again can tell you I've been here years and I have done it very, very, very rarely in very extenuating circumstances where maybe a child's needs are evolving in a way where I think Danielle Wetmore mentioned we do have some programming. For example, we have some sub-separate programming, which means kids are learning outside the gen ed classroom for a lot of their day because maybe we have now learned, now that they've gotten older, that they may have some sort of specific learning disability and they need instruction that is totally different. In those cases, we definitely make exceptions and we move when we need to move. So there's no timeline, there's no rules on that end of it, other than we exhaust every possible option that we can before we consider that. And that's where Zena was saying about, intervention and support. We have amazing reading specialists in both strands. We have tiered systems of support. We have special educators who push in and pull out of both French classes and English classes. So we do everything we can to keep kids in the program that you chose for them. And in very rare and extenuating circumstances, we have made shifts. So it's not unheard of.
And part of the reason why that we're including the assessment data, the Shaywitz dyslexia screener, and we're intensifying sort of our DIVLS process is really just to have all the information available to us early on so that we know if there's intervention needed in French or, if a student is diagnosed with dyslexia, how to approach that if you're interested in choosing French for your student. I have a question.
Hi. So you kind of spoke to this a moment ago, but I wonder if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more. Should it be a parent's consideration if their kid is going into first grade and isn't reading in English yet? Is French for that kid?
So I would say, do you want it? No. Yes.
Me?
Okay.
Are you looking? Oh, I thought you were looking.
So reading in English is not a requirement. We do know the foundational skills that they are taught in kindergarten in English, obviously, will help them with relearning how to read in English or in French. All these foundational skills, phonemic awareness, background knowledge, all of this will help in either languages. And there is support in both programs if that student needs more support.
We have plenty of kids who aren't reading at the end of first grade and the kindergarten who do get the support that they need and flourish in both.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for this. Just 2 quick points of clarification to make sure I understood correctly. If a student is placed in the lottery for French immersion, that student's family will have the option to opt into the English innovation. Okay, perfect, in their home school. And then secondly, in the event your oldest is placed in a lottery and moves to a new school, is that new school like the new home school? Thank you. Okay.
So yes to both. So yes, it would be your homeschool unless you wanted it to not be, which hopefully you wouldn't. And yes, if you were waitlisted and you were like, no, I'm never leaving Tucker. We'll go to English. You are guaranteed, again, remember that you're guaranteed an English innovation seat in your home school, right? The only time you're not is if you select French immersion, you get French immersion, you're holding a seat in French immersion, and then you decide not to, we'll try to get you back into English. But if that seat has been scooped up, we might need to put you somewhere else. Yep. Yes. Yes. Bingo. But if you choose French and you get French and you say, I'm going to be one of those 26 kids in my home school, and then like 3 weeks later, you're like, actually, I really want English. If that seat's gone, we won't have it for you. Does that make sense?
Hi. I have just a quick question socially. So thinking about students staying in this little tiny cohort for 5 years.
Yes.
With the same peers.
Yes.
Just curious about sort of the opportunities for some mixing of different peers, or like, is there time during specials for some of that? Just kind of considering the needs of my own kiddo and
It's a smart
she may
question.
need some new friends after a little bit.
Yeah. So in the single strand schools, where there's 2 strands, we mix them all up every year. You get a new clientele, good to go. But in the single strand schools, you're with the same kids for first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. And then something magical happens. In 5th grade, we mix them all up again in all of the schools. So they actually go back and they start, remember Zena mentioned the 70% English in 5th grade. That is all mixed back together. But the reality is for 4 straight years, they're in a single strand with the same peers. And that's not easy. And that should factor into what you're thinking about when you think about your child, right? That's a reality. And it's one that we can't really combat in many ways other than they're at lunch and recess together, all together every day. They play outside all together every day. They have so much fun together. We try to get them with any sort of enrichment activities, any field trips, anything where we've got speakers coming in or special projects. I know our French and our English teachers, they are teams. It is not, when you go in, you don't see like, oh, there's the 2nd grade English teachers and there's the 2nd grade French teachers. They are one 2nd grade team. They plan together. They meet every week for common planning together. They're like, I'm doing this cool project. Oh, I want to do that cool project too. Oh, cool. Let's mix up our classes. So we recognize that and we do as much as we can to combat it. That said, it's a reality. And it is one that if you are in a single strand school, is something you want to think about.
Hi. So my question is actually twofold. I totally get that it's based on the numbers, but do you know which schools will be dual strand next year? Sorry.
So I assume Tucker will remain single strand, but I don't know. It's really dependent on the numbers. Honestly, it really depends on how it all shakes out. In general, Glover has always been 2 strands. I believe Collicott is always 2 strands. And then it's hard to say because it really honestly is parent decision. If 10 kids at Glover choose French and 90, which I don't think will happen, and 90 choose English, I'm going to have 1 for the first time in my years, right? So it truly is totally dependent on what you guys choose, other than we are guaranteed 2 English classes at every grade level in every school.
So the follow-up would be if I did want to enroll my daughter in French immersion, would I have the option to choose a school that is dual strand for more of that mixing and socialization, or would I be automatically placed in my home school?
You know what? And on all my years, I've never gotten that one. That's a new one. You're good. A+ for you too. No, so you're in your homeschool. So whatever your homeschool is, that is your homeschool. We've never encountered a situation where a family is electing to give up their seat in their home school to go to a school where there's 2 strands, but got it. So we've never done that before. So I'm going to have to take a bye on that one unless anybody else has an answer to that one, because that's a new one. Yeah. And I hear it. I hear it's very valid to think about, a single strand and the same cohort of peers. I don't know if anybody is a single strand teacher who wants to speak to that. What was the question? How hard is it when they're single strand and they've been together for, it's hard, but,
one thing I want to say about the children who are in single strand is that Milton is a sport activity town, and if your child is staying with the same court for 5 years, they're going to meet with other people throughout the year because there's so much sport going on. They know all of them. They know English, French, or whatever. So I will not be concerned so much. And I don't know, Emma, you have more experience with the single.
I believe the answer is if there was a lottery at Cunningham So you have a single strand. If there's a lottery at Cunningham and your kid's in the lottery and not given a seat at Cunningham, and a seat opens up at Glover or Collicott and it's a double strand, then you absolutely would have the option to choose it. However, if you are a Cunningham kid, you choose French immersion and you're one of the 26 kids that's chosen for French immersion, I don't think it's an option to switch, but I will confirm that, and you can shoot me an email, and I will check that out. Really good question. Did you have something else?
No, from what I hear, I think after 5 years, they are kind of like family. They are like siblings. They love each other. They hate each other. And yeah, Milton is a big family.
And so they have Collicott and Tucker. They do a different way, and I teach in both schools as a 5th grade teacher. And to be honest, they're friends. Even if they mixed up at Tucker, they are their French friends. So there is a social part, but again, they can be social outside of school, and it's not a problem. And they are family. They really are family, and they love each other. So they might mix up during English time, but in the morning, my French kids in my French class, for them, it's like, oh, my friends. It's really like friends.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm hoping you can speak to historically whether you've been able to balance classes based on student need so that you feel there's equitable placement across both programs if it's entirely parent selected.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, we do everything we possibly can with what we're given. So because it is entirely parent choice, it's really unique because it's entirely parent choice. I, as the principal, am given a French list and an English list. And then I balance as best as I possibly can those 2 French classes and those 2 English classes. But the reality is at the end of the day, I have no bearing on who landed on that French list and who landed on that English list. So I can only do what I can do. What do you mean? So are you saying, is there more need in one program versus another? It depends on the year. I will be totally, perfectly honest with you. For example, right after COVID, less people chose French, and I have right now I have teeny tiny little 4th grade French classes, and I have massive English classes, because right after COVID, all parents were like, I'm not putting them in French. We just, we just did at-home learning. I can't do that. So that year is totally different than the year before in terms of need, in terms of profile of students, in terms of everything. It is entirely dependent on how the chips fall. We do our best to balance with what we have. And like I said, it's easier to balance when you have 2 classes instead of 1. And you're right. There are differences. There are inherent differences in the classroom structure and the classroom makeup. There are. I'm not going to stand here and say there aren't. But within it, what we do is we do our very best to balance, and we look at social needs. We look at academic needs. We look at occupational therapy and executive functioning needs. We look at kiddos who are maybe on the younger end and kiddos who are on the older end. We look at gender. We look at race. We look at everything when we are placing our kids, is in particular in 1st grade, because we do want to make, with this constraint of we didn't get to pick who chooses what, we want to make it as balanced with what we're given as we possibly can. So we look at every possible sort of identifier. We do the best we possibly can.
Do any of these programs have continuing ed in the summertime for the students, for parents that want their child to continue to speak? And then secondly, is there, for any of these programs, is there any curriculum for parents that want to engage with their child, try to have a conversation with them, just to keep them on top?
Is the question about the summer program? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We have here Caroline Morton is the assistant principal at the Tucker School. She's actually a French immersion student, and she runs the summer program. So I'm going to give her the mic.
Hi. So as Zena mentioned, I'm a proud alum of the program. I went through the Milton Public Schools and was a French teacher at Cunningham for about 10 years before moving into an admin role. But over the summer, we do, and actually our registration is starting on Monday, the Milton Summer Enrichment Program, where we have some fun French enrichment. It's called French is Fun is one of our offerings. And then we have a lot of different offerings too for innovation and English innovation pathway students. We also, for students who are identified as needing some additional support over the summer, either in reading or math, have something called the Beyond the Bell program. So we take teacher recommendations, we look at data to select students who would benefit from a little bit of continuing education over the summer. I'm not sure if we offer adult education, but in my past life as a teacher, I did offer, I think, intro to French. But I will say I have some family members. My mom is now French speaking, but does some Duolingo over, and things like that, just to be able to understand the language a little bit more. And so I don't, yeah.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah. So, with everything we do in class, we have recorded so much phonics videos, reading videos, read aloud. Every one of these resources will be shared with you. And a lot of parents are learning the phonics through Madame Lebigot's videos. She became a YouTube star during COVID, and all the families started watching these videos and listening to read alouds. And I talked about the Lalilo platform as well. So a lot of parents sit and do that with their students. In Spanish, we don't have as much, but we have more resources in Spanish than in French, right? So yes, you will have opportunities. Will it teach you as much as your students will learn? No, because your students are going to be in first grade, something you can catch up with. After first grade, I'll say good luck. No, you will, and I'm not kidding. They are very fluent.
So Danielle, what I would suggest, because you all have little ones at home, I know you do because you're here, is I would say one more out loud question, and then we're all here. So come down and ask us anything else if you didn't get to ask anything, but it's 8:00 and I want to respect everyone's time. So last question.
You mentioned that you've tracked the demographics in the past and also shared that anecdote about somebody being nervous about putting their son in it. And I'm wondering if you find that it's a lot more girls than boys.
Some years, yes. Some years, no. Honestly, these guys can tell you, we have French classes that have 4 girls and 17 boys, right? Again, because it is entirely parent dependent, it is entirely your choice. It is a total throw them up and see where they land. Some years, sure. Yeah. I've got some heavier classes. I've got some boy heavier classes. That's what's really unique and sort of, intricate about this work is you just never know how it is all going to shake out. All right, so we're here and we're going to stay until all your questions are answered. But thank you. You were an amazing audience and thank you for coming.